Hello, and welcome to episode 21 of TBR, the To Be Read podcast. As always, I'm joined by Jamie Maltman and Michael Ronn, and tonight we have a very special guest, Mark Leslie from Kobo. How you guys doing?
Great. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thanks, guys. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So would you like to take a minute and introduce yourself to our viewers, listeners?
Sure. I'm known in a lot of writing circles as Mark from Kobo, because Lefebvre, thank you, Patrick. Great job, by the way. Most people can't pronounce Lefebvre, which is why I go by Mark from Kobo. I run the self-publishing platform at Kobo Writing Life, and I was hired to run the program because I am actually a writer and have been for a long, long time. So the concept was get a writer to run the program because he probably has a decent idea of what writers need and want. And I think, for the most part, because I actually pay a lot of attention to what writers want, because it's kind of important to me, I think that's been a lot of fun. I also write Twilight Zone / dark fiction, and God, I'm so excited that Halloween is just a few days away.
That's great. And, you know, we're two of us here, 2 out of 3 are in Canada and big fans of Kobo, I think, and all 3 of us are going to be doing Nano this year. Right, you're both signed up.
Yes.
And so it was nice to see. Kobo does all kinds of cool things, and when I was in the Nano forums, I got noticed that they're giving away a free book for all participants, kind of to start out the month, and then at the end of November, I think there's 10 more mystery books for anyone who, quote in quotes, wins Nano.
If you win, yeah, you go. We did that last year. It was great. We actually have a team. We call it Kobo Rimo. And last year we had a team of 5 Kobo folks who were writing novels in November. I'm pleased to say my novel Evasion has actually been a people's success story. Lots of people have loved that one. So I'm writing the sequel to it this year. But we have about, I think it was like 12 or 15 people from Kobo this year signing up. Most of whom have never written a novel, have never written.
Wow.
So it's really exciting. There's a few of us who are actual writers, but the rest of them are like, I think I'll give it a shot. It sounds like fun.
That's awesome. So we'll move into our reading discussion for the week. And Jamie, you want to go first?
Sure. So I think I did. I'm continuing to eke my way along episode by episode with Green Star, so I'm almost there. Did have a chance to recommend it to someone in a Goodreads group today too, where I had someone was asking for something light, humorous science fiction, and I'm like, hey, that's perfect. And they're like, preferably on Kindle. Sorry, that they mentioned at the time, but and they're everywhere anyway. But and I'm like, hey, that would be a great recommendation for that person. So, there was that. One thing that came in the library that I've been wanting to read for the longest time to try to accept it. It's funny, the straw that broke the camel's back on that was my mother saying, oh, I just read this book and you've got to read it. And it's The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, which is absolutely fantastic fantasy novel. I think about a third of the way through. And he's someone he's not a fast writer. He's someone who writes it, and he took, I don't know, it was something like 10, 12 years to get that one finally how he wanted it and published, etc. But it is a really, really good book. I like it a lot, and he's also getting flack, even worse, I think, in some ways than George R.R. Martin, because he takes like 4 or 5 years for the next one, and they're waiting for book 3 in the series. But I finally went on that one. I've had a lot of recommendations for it, and I do like it as much as I thought I would. So really enjoying that. And I've also read a writing-related book. Hold on, let me see the name, make sure I got it right. So it's 21 Days to a Novel. The Secrets Writing Guides by Michael A. Stackpole, and that's one of my pre-Nano things. It was from a story bundle related to a Nano story bundle. So read that. I just finished it actually today, and I'm on day, I think, 17 of the exercises, and it's all leading into my outline that I've got going on between that and the $1 Million Outlines by David Farland, which was another one from that story bundle that I've read, basically using aspects of both of them and in getting ready for writing book 3 of my series starting November 1st. So still got a bunch of pre-work to do, but I've been doing a lot of pre-work, writing a lot of pre-words, so it's been a lot of fun. So I don't know if that's cheating or not for technical nano terms, but it works for me. So that was my week in reading.
I don't know what constitutes cheating in Nano, but I don't think it's reading books about writing.
I don't think so, especially in October.
The pre-writing side, some people are like, no, thou shalt not write a useful word until November 1st, and other people are like, whatever, as long as I write, I write. So I'm in the latter camp for sure.
Yeah, I think anything's fair game until November 1st.
Oh, geez, if you're a plotter and you don't think you can start plotting before November 1st, you're sunk. So, Mark, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm going to mention 3 books very quickly because I just recently read 3 scary books because, Halloween coming up and all that. Past Midnight by Mara Pernhagen. Fantastic. It's a YA story about a teenager who travels a lot with her family. Her mom and dad are ghost hunters. Her dad's the scientist who likes to debunk ghosts. Fantastic ghostly story. I loved it. It's the first in a series, so I'm eager to jump into books 2 and 3. Blackbirds by Chuck Wendig. About a woman who can actually, when she touches you, she actually sees how you die. And again, I finished it, I loved it, and found out, oh God, it's the first of a series of books. So I'm going to have to enjoy the rest of those. But the one I wanted to share a little bit was Craig DeLuey's Suffer the Children, which had a real impact on me as a vampire novel, and I'll say this because I hate vampire novels. I think vampires are they've been overdone. I can't stand them. I can't stand the sexy ones. I can't stand the scary ones. I just had enough of them. But this was an amazing one because I actually met Craig at When Words Collide this past summer, and he was on a panel with me talking about horror fiction. And as he was describing his novel, I'm writing it down, going, God, I got to read this book. And I'm so glad I picked it up. It is about all children in the world, under a certain age, they all die. They all come back to life, but only if they're given blood. And so the concept is, as a parent, I really sympathized and empathized with the parents because there's almost nothing I wouldn't do for my kid. And how would you get blood to keep your kid alive? But imagine that you're just one of thousands of parents in this town, and the blood supply is limited, and that's where the real conflict lies. So it's this fantastic vampire story told from the point of view of these parents trying desperately to keep their kids alive, to just have one more day with them. Absolutely powerful and disturbing and beautifully written, and after having finished this, I'm going to have to go back and check out the rest of the rest of his books as well.
And sorry, what was the full name again? I heard Craig DeLuise.
Craig DeLuey, Dilouie, and the title is Suffer the Children, and I think that is a Simon & Schuster book. It's really hard when you read an ebook because you don't have the spine in front of you.
Right. And nobody reads the copyright page, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You skip through that, right?
In fact, most books open up, chapter 1, page 1. You don't even often get to see the cover or anything. Good. So, Michael, how was your week?
Yeah, I've been getting ready for NaNoWriMo as well, and so I kind of put fiction in the back burner for about a week or so because I'm trying to plan these novels out and trying to get as much as I can to get ready for November 1st. But I read How to Write a Killer Thriller by Jody Renner. So I've never written a thriller before, so I'm going to be kind of writing one for NaNoWriMo, so I need to know the lay of the land before I jump into that, and that's been pretty cool.
Jody's an editor, right?
Yeah, I think she's an editor, and yeah, she's a pretty good writer, and she really makes a compelling case for different ways to think about thrillers, things that I'd never considered before, like things you can do with thrillers that don't quite work in other genres. So I read that, and I am currently reading a book, a nonfiction book. It's called Physics of the Future by Michio Kaku. Have you guys heard of that?
No, I have not.
Yeah, he was on the Colbert Report maybe a few months ago, and he's a scientist, and he writes about what he thinks the world is going to look like in the year 2100, which it's interesting because there's a lot of books out there that talk about the future and science and all that, but he actually interviews like 300 scientists, and he makes predictions based on existing technology. So he talks about the future of the internet. He talks about the future of cloning and nanotechnology and climate change and all that. And it's an interesting perspective because it's really well written. Like a lot of science books I've read are kind of, oh man, this is, you just want to gnaw off your arm, when you read it. But this is really compelling and fun. And I'm also listening to an audiobook this week, The Beam, Season 1 by Johnny B. Truant and Sean Platt. I got a review copy of that, and I'm listening to it. And it's interesting because I'm actually not reading the book. I'm actually just listening to it. And it's an interesting performance because it's like a whole cast of narrators reading the story. So it almost reminds me of like those old radio dramas, where you have an installment and a cliffhanger at the end of every episode. It's a lot of fun, and I guess it's kind of interesting that I'm reading Physics of the Future along with it, because I wonder if they read that book as doing research for the Beam, because a lot of that stuff, a lot of the technology is kind of similar.
Yeah, that's funny because I wanted to ask you that when you were talking about the Physics of the Future book, but I didn't think you had read the Beam, so it's interesting that you picked it up.
Yeah, it was an interesting coincidence. I didn't intend for it to work that way, but I'll be reading that, and then this coming week I'll be reading the first book in the Sawyer Jackson series by Kevin Tumlinson, which you guys have both read and gave glowing reviews. So I'm always the last one to come around to stuff like that. So I will read that and look forward to checking that out too.
Cool. So I'll go into my week, and I was just going to say too, if you enjoyed that the one book by Jody Renner, you might also like Style That Sizzles. That's another one of her books that I've read.
I'll check that out.
So this week, as you said, I read Sawyer Jackson and the Long Land by Kevin Tumlinson, and he's an author that we've had on the show, and he's a guy that I've done a couple reading with writers posts on the blog, and I wanted to get him doing that with me as well, but it made sense to, of course, read his book first. And as you said, I gave it a glowing review. I like Jamie, I just loved the world that he's created there. It's this interesting, the layers, and I don't want to go too much into it and ruin anything, but I really like the main character, his grandparents, the mentor character that comes in later on, and it's just a fun story with different universes done in a way that I've never quite seen before. So I really enjoyed that. And like you guys, I've been planning for Nano, and I got that story bundle as well. And so I read Christine Catherine Rush's The Pursuit of Perfection and How It Harms Writers.
Excellent.
Which is a real, just kind of straightforward, just perfect book to read before jumping into Nano. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then I also read two books by Kevin J. Anderson, $1 Million Professionalism and $1 Million Productivity, which were also both good ones. A lot of the books that came in that bundle are kind of short, hour-long reads maybe. There's a couple long reads in there that I won't get through before November 1st. I'm trying to hit some of the shorter ones. So now I'm also reading the Chuck Wendig one that came with the, which is, God, he's written so many of these. This one is 500 Ways to Write Harder, I think. And so that one's a lot of fun. So that was my week. In which case we will move into our topic of the week heading into Halloween. So of course we're going to talk about scary books, horror, thrillers, anything gory and scary that we can think of. Jamie, you want to start?
You're
not the horror.
Yeah, all right. No, I'm not the horror aficionado. Like, it's funny when you say horror, and that's what I sort of clam up because I don't think of myself reading horror really at all. And I'm like, when did I actually read a book that would be like horror? And I don't know, in my mind, the picture that's showing up is the cover of those old scary stories to tell in the dark, like, middle grade kind of scary stories book. And there was one with like this tree with a clown face on it. I don't know. It's like that makes me think of the movie of It, and I just go, I sort of run away screaming. So I don't know. That was sort of my first reaction to it. When you broadened it slightly, to maybe include some different things, I guess it's funny. I didn't think of it being horror, but I guess it sort of is, right? With Yesterday's Gone was one that I read last year. It's on the border. It's not terribly scary, but it does have those eerie, creepy sort of elements in it, and it's a really cool story. And
I call that horror.
Yeah. So there we go. I'm on on some of that after the disaster kind of creepy, eerie stuff, because I did really like The Stand, and then it's got some of that vibe to it for sure, where it's something happens suddenly, and then everybody's got to deal with it, and there's a bunch of weird stuff going on. So that sort of stuff appeals to me more. I like more the creepy sort of stuff a little bit here and there, and I'm sure I'm going to hear some more great recommendations from you guys on that side. But I don't know. That was just sort of where I'd kick it off, where I'd introduce a little bit of. I've never been one for the really gory, and I've never been one for the sort of terrifying stuff. And I don't know. I've said before on the show that I remember, like, I still vividly remember the first time I saw my mother with the Pet Sematary cover of the paperback, and being really scared even to look at it. So that kept me away from Stephen King for years. And then
But you read The Stand and you liked it.
That was recent. And again, I don't know. Is that really horror? It's on the very borderline, if anything. I don't know.
But horror doesn't have to be gore, right? I mean, I don't like
exactly, yeah.
either. So I would say if you enjoyed The Stand, I guess. So one of the books on my list that would be my recommendation if you liked The Stand would be Swan Song by Robert McCammon.
Fantastic novel.
Great book. Same kind of feel, post-apocalyptic. In this case, it's nuclear war, and so you've got the good group of people who are just trying to survive, and then there's of course the horrible, terrible people that are trying to stop them from surviving. It's like the King book in a lot of ways. I mean, it's very long. And it's great survival horror, I guess you would call that, and I loved it. So, Mark, you've read that too, obviously.
Oh, Swan Song is one of my favorite all-time books. There was a time when all I read was post-apocalyptic fiction. So, love Yesterday's Gone, love The Stand. I'm going to recommend, since you recommended another one in that area, Lucifer's Hammer by Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle, about a meteor that hits the Earth, and again, like Swan Song, it's this giant epic novel that actually has a cast of characters at the front of it. And wow, I haven't reread that in a long time, but I would put that in the same realm as if you like The Stand, you would like this as well.
Cool. And then we're going to bounce back recommendations, and I think from there I would probably go to 1 Second After by William Forstchen. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name, but this is a book where America is attacked by an EMP, and it takes place in the mountains in the U.S. somewhere, and it's basically about a small community of people who are trying to survive this attack that has shut down everything, and they have no idea who's been affected. Is it the entire world? Who attacked them? Could be China. Could be, they don't know. And so it's this small community of people trying to survive on a mountain, and dealing with all of the other, the same kinds of problems. There's bad people out there, and all the bad things that can happen by being, having a sudden loss of all technology. And it's a really good one as well. So again,
am I allowed to keep going? Am I allowed to keep going on this one?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
Recent novel called Bird Box by Josh Malerman, and it is again a post-apocalyptic realm. In this particular case, the catchphrase for the book is "Don't open your eyes," because if you open your eyes and see whatever it is that you can't see, it makes you crazy and you become a killer. And so it is this amazing story. And one of the main plot lines throughout it is this woman who was pregnant at the time of the change, the post-apocalyptic change, and she's raised her children and taught them not to ever open their eyes so they can get around in the dark. So when you leave your home, you have to be blindfolded, or else you might see what's going on out there. And it's just this amazingly dark, disturbing book. It came out about 6 months ago.
That reminds.
It was fun.
That for some reason, while you're describing that, it reminded me of, and I can't remember the name of it, but one of Stephen King's short stories, where they're traveling through space and they have to be put under, basically put to sleep. And I don't want to ruin the hook, but basically you learn in the story what happens if you don't, if you
You stay awake.
if you stay awake for the journey.
That's a lesson for kids that it's bedtime. I'm going to read that to my son, but just before bedtime. Day of the Triffids, right? Does Bird Box remind you of Day of the Triffids, John Wyndham, a little bit? At least the opening. That's how they got everyone. They blinded everyone.
Right.
I'm not giving any spoilers away for this 40-year-old novel, am I?
Yeah, I don't think that's fair game. I think. So maybe some recommendation for people who don't like horror and for maybe Jamie. A couple of the ones I had on my list were by David Wong, a pseudonym for a Cracked writer. If you've ever been spent any time at work on the Cracked website, and he wrote 2 books. John Dies at the End, and this book is full of spiders. Seriously, dude, don't touch it.
I've seen that one.
So you can tell by the titles that they're tongue-in-cheek. And he writes for Cracked, so obviously they're sort of comedic horror. So if you want to read books about zombie type goings on, but with tongue-in-cheek and funny, those are I enjoyed those books very much. If you want something that's not going to keep you awake at night, but still has scary things in it, monsters and demons and stuff.
Yeah, I've got a recommendation too for post-apocalyptic fans out there. It's 100 Days in Deadland by Rachel Ox, and that came out, I think, last year. And it's funny because she's a Des Moines author too, a local author. I live in Des Moines, Iowa. She lives here too, and it's a zombie tale, but it's got a twist. It is a modern retelling of Dante's Inferno. So basically, zombies. There's a infection, and zombies end up, your typical zombie story, right? Everyone gets infected and they become zombies. But the twist is that the main character is like a modern version of Dante, and she meets this this trucker who they end up escaping the zombies together. And he's kind of, if you guys have read Dante's Inferno, he's like Virgil, and he's kind of helping her survive. And it's basically them going through surviving this post-apocalyptic crisis in small town Iowa, and everyone's turning on each other, and it's kind of it mirrors the 7 circles of hell and all the different types of people that they come across. Like there's a neurotic guy that he's like a survivalist, and they've got these camps, and if you're not in the camp, then they're trying to kill you. And it was just really inventive. It was a lot of fun. It was clever, and I've read some zombie novels, but this one was just so different. It was just different. I remember reading it, and I remember not being. It wasn't really a horror title. Like it's definitely got some elements of horror. Like some of these zombies, I mean, they're eating people, and they're pretty scary. But what was more interesting about it, I think, was just the post-apocalyptic take on taking place in the Midwest. It's a different setting, different type, and it's an interesting twist because the similarities to Dante's Inferno are there, but they're not beating you over the head with them. But if you read some of the stuff that she talks about, like the author's notes and stuff, it's like, oh yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense, And so it's a trilogy, and the first book is her, the descent into the Inferno as the crisis gets bad. Then it's Purgatory, and then the third book, which isn't out yet, is Paradise. So it'll be interesting to see how she resolves it, but.
Cool.
Yeah, 100 Days in Deadland. I would recommend that. That's definitely a fun one to read.
So if you want to talk zombies, I'll give you two recommendations. One that will keep you up at night, Jamie, and one that'll blow your mind. So the one that'll
literally or figuratively?
Both. So the one that'll keep you up at night is I, Zombie by Hugh Howey.
Oh, I was going to recommend that one.
Great. And
we've been in the room when I was in the room with Mark when he was talking about that. When he was
okay.
And yeah, I know what it's all about. That's just very different.
So for anyone who's listening or watching, I mean, this is talk about a different take on zombies. So this is a book written from the perspective of the people who have turned into zombies, and so they're conscious in their minds, unable to alter their course. I mean, their zombie bodies are kind of doing zombie things while they're fully conscious and basically watching it happen, watching themselves eat people, watching themselves, shuffle through the streets, and it's pretty horrifying stuff. And then the one that will.
It is by far, I think, that is Howie's best work. I've read a number of his pieces. That one got me. That was amazing, and he doesn't want anyone to read it, but I think it's really his best work. It really is a statement about society too. When you actually look at it, it's amazing. Sorry, I can't rave enough about it.
Yeah, no, it's a great read. And then the other one I was going to say that will blow your mind, and hopefully you haven't seen the movie, is World War Z.
Yeah.
Which, have any of you guys read that?
I haven't read it, but I've seen part of the movie.
It's on my list of don't watch the movie and read the book because it's supposed to just mess with it in horrible ways. So.
I'll throw one at you to see maybe, Jamie, if you've read more horror than you think you. This is one that kind of came to me today. That'll kind of, a horror, in quotes, maybe book that would ruin your childhood, which is Watership Down.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that's horror for a kid?
I wouldn't call that horror. I mean, that's like a...
Tell me you didn't see that movie as a kid and be terrified.
I didn't see the movie, but the book is interesting. It's weird. I don't know how you would classify that. Because it has those elements of horror, right? But it's... I don't know. It's a good book, though. It's not what you think it is.
How about, and you guys break in any time, I'm just throwing things out here.
I was going to say, I sort of feel like I not derailed things, but steered it into one small corner of horror, and I know that Mark in particular is a horror aficionado and has pretty, I think, broad tastes of stuff that he likes. So I don't know, what are some other areas, Mark, that you feel like we're completely missing that are near and dear to your the horror part of your heart?
Actually, you know what? I don't read as much horror as you might think I do. I read across the genres, but I mean, when I look back at it, I'm toggling back over to Goodreads to see, what are the last 20 or 30 books that I read, and okay, all right, admittedly, there's some scary ones there, but I have to recommend, if you guys have not checked out Jason Brandt. Jason Brandt is an indie author from the U.S., and The Dark is among... he has an amazing post-apocalyptic series, by the way. And I'm trying to find the name of the Devoured is the first book in the series. And again, it's sort of a zombie vampire kind of post-apocalyptic thing. Very dark, very disturbing. Along the lines, if you liked Yesterday's Gone, you'll like this. It's a bit more gritty, a bit more tough. But The Dark is a standalone, terrifying novel. And the interesting thing, and I say this working for Kobo, but there's this amazing scene where the one thing that keeps this woman alive is the Kindle, because it has the light, and she falls asleep. And what happens is if you're covered by the dark at all, they get you. And so you have to have light on you. It's the Kindle that she keeps. She falls asleep, and like the fire or whatever, the one that lights up. In Kobo world, it would be a Kobo Glow or a Kobo Aura that would have the light on it. And I was going to tease Jason and say, well, on the Kobo version, you should change that to a Kobo from a Kindle, so the Canadian readers know what the hell you're talking about. But I thought that was great because I'm terrified of the dark. I'm the biggest chicken you'll ever meet. And so when I read that book, I was like, oh, yeah, you're right, because you can't let the dark get you, because if you let the dark get you, then the monsters will come. And Jason Brandt, honest to God, brilliant author. If you're looking for great, scary reads, you pretty much check out anything he's written. The guy does not write a bad word.
Cool. We're going to have quite the list for after the show, Jamie.
Yeah, I'm keeping track as we go, so I'm doing pretty well today.
So I'm surprised, and this I seem to recall you have mentioned that you've read this, Jamie. I'm surprised no one has mentioned Something Wicked This Way Comes, Ray Bradbury.
Yeah, I had that on my list to mention.
And okay, so you've read it. I knew one of you had read it.
That was there.
That guy over there. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of Bradbury. That's definitely a good one. Just starts off creepy and doesn't relent. A lot of Bradbury's short stuff, his short fiction. I mean, that's one of his novels, but his short fiction is really interesting too. Like, it's got a lot of like dark and cryptic undertones. Like, have you guys read The October Country by Bradbury? It's a series of short story collections, but some of them are kind of different. Like, there's one, it's called The Scythe, where this guy controls the world. It's kind of weird, but it follows this family, the Elliot family, and each member of the family has these different superpowers. So like one of the girls, Cece, she can get into anyone's mind and control them, and she can become like a butterfly, and then she can just jump into the mind of like her brother or things like that. And then there's the creepy uncle that has wings and flies, and it's funny and interesting. It's very Halloween-ish. Reminds me of that. But a lot of his short fiction is kind of creepy. Like I've read a lot of his short stories, and they kind of creep me out a little bit.
It's funny, you just saying that reminded me of, I think it was like end of grade 6. It was like vividly this came back they showed us the short film of The Veld, which is I think another one of those ones.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's one of my favorite Brad Dog stories.
That was creepy. So
yeah.
It's funny, when you get into short fiction a bit, I read the Neil Gaiman's Fragile Things, which definitely had some horror elements in some of the stories there, because he likes to weave in some little darker stuff anyway, regardless. But I can't remember the specific ones in there, but there were a couple that I definitely was feeling a little eerie after reading it. So, and I know he's got some other stuff too that I think does get darker as well. So, and even isn't his newer one even tends towards darker horror? I haven't read it yet. So the Ocean at the End of the Lane. Right?
Yeah, that's more.
Not quite.
A little bit. It's not horror, no. So yeah, like some of his stuff, it can get a little creepy. Yeah. It's creepy, but it's also more. I would call it maybe like an urban fairy tale almost. I would describe it more on that end.
Not that fairy tales can't be creepy, said the Grimm.
Oh yeah, I mean everything he does is a little creepy, but not horror. Any Scott Sigler fans in the house?
I haven't read anything by him, no.
Oh yeah.
Infected, Contagious, and Pandemic is a trilogy that is disgusting and awesome. I love those books. I had a problem with Pandemic, or I thought I was going to, because he released Infected and Contagious very close together, and I think back in I could be wrong here, but I'm thinking as far back as 2008-ish.
Something like that, yeah.
And then Pandemic didn't come out until last year. And so I knew I wanted to read it, but I was, that long between books, I was worried I was going to have a hard time remembering what the heck happened in the first two. And I think kind of a testament to how good of a writer he is it was like a one-page kind of introduction to the third book, and it just brought it all flooding back. All the characters, all the things that went on, so that's a fantastic series.
I actually listened to Scott. I listened to the audio version, and really well done. He's a great narrator as well.
Right, he narrates his own stuff.
Yeah.
And he's been doing
Random
that for
House.
years.
Yeah, and these were published by Random House. It was like a major publisher, and they still let him do it, which was really cool.
Well, he got his start doing that as a audiobook, didn't he? Or it was something.
Yeah, he gave it out for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got a three book hardcover deal with Crown Publishing, which is one of Random House's imprints, by giving it away for free, demonstrating that you can. I mean, this is prior to the self-pub boom, but demonstrating that this is a great way to make your own roads into publishing.
Cool. And here's a little less well-known one, maybe, although maybe not. Myra Grant. You guys heard of her? She has a trilogy, Feed, Deadline, and Newsflash. And I believe she won the Hugo last year for Newsflash, and I thought she should have won the Hugo for Feed a year or two before that. I think that's the year that Joe Walton's, among others, won. I was kind of rooting for Myra, though. And this is another, so it's post-apocalyptic, zombies, and it's told the main characters are thrill seekers, basically, like a brother and sister team and their friends who kind of go out into, they have like a special license from the government, basically, to go out into the wasteland and basically blog and, like I said, be thrill seekers and kind of kill zombies. But they do it to drive traffic to their website, basically. So it's called the Newsflash trilogy, and she has another trilogy that she started up called Parasite, which is pretty cool as well.
I'm gonna make a retro retro
Yeah.
recommendation. Any of you guys read the Goosebump novels?
Those are a little after my
Back in the
time,
day.
I think.
My
Yeah.
sisters were all over those, so yeah.
I was going to say, Jamie, I would be remiss not to mention that, especially with your kids growing up. I mean,
Oh yeah.
classic kids horror, right? I
And
mean,
he's back. R.L. Stein is back.
that's what they say.
Yeah,
I
he's
haven't
been
read any of his recent.
doing. He's been doing stuff on Wattpad, Wattpad.com, where you can read all the stuff for free.
Oh,
But
that's
he's been making his comeback, and I actually got a notification from him today because I'm following him there. It's like, this is so cool. Like, he's coming back. That's amazing.
Yeah, those old Goosebump novels were so much fun. I mean, like Night of the Living Dummy and Say Cheese and Die and Go Eat Worms. I mean, just like your classic, stories you tell around the campfire, like kind of like Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Somebody, I can't remember where it was or who it was, but somebody recently reminded me of Bunnicula.
Oh, James Howe. I love that book. That is an amazing novel.
I read that back in the day. There were a few of them in that series, weren't there?
Yeah.
Like two. Yeah. With the rabbit who sucks the color out of the carrots and all the vegetables are white. It's just, I love that book. That is such an amazing book. Thanks for bringing that up.
How about Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child? You guys read any of their books?
Oh my God, yeah. You're talking about the FBI series with Pendergast, right?
Aloysius Pendergast, which took me a couple books to figure out. That's one of those names that you see it Aloysius, and it took me a few books to. Oh, it's Aloysius. I've never seen it. I've never seen the name spelled out. Sean, that's a name I always had a problem with.
That's a tough one. Aloysius and his brother reminded me of Fraser and Niles, except one was evil and one was good. That's what I thought of. Because they're these nerds, complete nerds, right? What an amazing series, though. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Those, and you know what? I think I haven't read the last two. I've got to get to them.
There's so many of them now. I think I first discovered them with the first book in. I mean, they were writing about Pendergast beforehand, but the Brimstone. I can't remember the name of the trilogy, but Brimstone was the first book in a trilogy that was about his brother, kind of introducing him as a character, and then went back and read Relic, which has been made into a movie, and Reliquary is the sequel to that, and then I think that's the point where the Brimstone trilogy kind of picks up. And yeah, since then, I haven't read the last several books of that series because it's like every year there's a new one that comes out.
But let's take a diversion away from horror in case people are looking for other stuff. But like Preston and Child, Michael Connolly, the Harry Bosch novels. I'm actually reading the advanced reader's copy for the one that's coming out next month. Mm-hmm. And do you guys read? Have you read any of the Harry Bosch mysteries?
I have some of them sitting here. My girlfriend's read a bunch of them. I haven't yet.
So he's kind of like Harry reminds me a little bit as a toned down Clint Eastwood sort of Dirty Harry. His name is Hieronymus Bosch, like the painter, but everyone calls him Harry. And it is Connolly's been writing this series for 25 years.
Yeah,
read every single one of them. Bosch is on the verge of retirement, and it's just an amazing. He doesn't take and I'll say this for Amazon. God, I'm promoting the company I don't work for, but they're the enemy to me. But no, so I subscribe to Amazon Prime only so I could get access to Bosch, which is their Netflix style where they've actually produced it, and it's only available on Amazon. And Titus Wheeler is playing Harry Bosch. He was not the person I would cast for it, but oh my God, what an amazing actor, and he's pulled Bosch off perfectly. Just like Lieutenant Dan, who was in The Stand, the TV version of The Stand, was not Stu from The Stand that I'd seen, but he pulled it off anyways. And the funny thing is because I'm in Canada, I can't even access Bosch until I'm traveling through the States. And so I paid $75. I had to wait till I was in the U.S. so I could watch it.
Yeah, that's the reason I was ready to sign up for Prime, and then I realized in Canada the only benefit we have with Prime is the shipping. Yeah.
Which is
I've
why we
taken
love
advantage of it.
Kobo.
Which is why Kobo's awesome. No, but testament to Michael Connolly and just how much I adore the Harry Bosch novels. Just absolutely amazing. So, and I can't even. Can I recommend what the name of the book is that's coming out that I'm reading that I'm about halfway through right now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let me toggle over to the screen here and see if. Of course, I didn't plug it in yet. So the name of the new Harry Bosch novel is called Something or Other, and it's coming out in November.
And how many books is that in that
Oh,
series?
God.
Do you know offhand?
I don't know because he's toggled between writing about Harry Bosch as well as writing the Lincoln Lawyer series. Lincoln Lawyer was made into a movie, but
Right. I have those sitting on the shelf too. Yeah.
yeah, fantastic.
The reason I ask
Yeah,
how many books in the series, because clearly you've read them all, and you're clearly still a huge fan. And we've talked a little bit about that in the past with how they can at some point start to feel a little samey. Like I love Lee Child, I love Jack Reacher, but 19 books in, I'd like to see. I think I was saying my dream for a Reacher book at this point would to see him go to jail for something and see a Jack Reacher in prison book, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. You're still obviously loving the Bosch books.
Bosch, and it's called The Burning Room, by the way. And Harry gets another new partner in this new one, and it's fantastic. But no, I absolutely adore that character. I got a chance to meet Michael Connolly a couple years ago when we were launching Kobo Writing Life at Book Expo America, and I was the drooling fanboy trying really, really hard to keep it together because I was interviewing him in the Kobo booth, and it was amazing because I think at the beginning I'm not sure if he's shy or thought, oh, this is some other jackass who doesn't know anything about my work and he's going to ask me some stupid questions. And about 3 or 4 minutes into the interview, he could tell I had read every single book he had ever written. I was a diehard fan. I knew Harry Bosch. I knew the lawyer books. I knew the standalone books like The Poet and stuff like that. That he ended up weaving through the same universe. And we were just two writers chatting about writing a great mystery series, and we completely got lost in it and forgot we were being recorded. And that I think back to is like, oh my God, I got to ask him all kinds of cool questions I can't even remember the answers for because I was flying.
Oh, that's cool. So we're coming up on or just about to pass 45 minutes. Do we have any kind of final recommendations from anyone? Anything on any lists that we didn't hit?
I can't think of any. I talked about all the ones I had on my list.
Okay. I could go on and on, so I'm not going to.
How about Mark? Do you have any potentially spooky stories to recommend to anyone? And we'll let you talk about your own there as well as on our way out.
Oh, am I allowed to plug my own stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that seems kind of shameless. For free, you can read Tricky Treats, which is a collection of 3 Halloween stories, which may be appropriate, that I'm rolling out this week on Wattpad for free. Of course, you can purchase it at Kobo or Kindle or Nook or whatever, but you can read them for free. And there are 3 Halloween-themed stories, dark humor Halloween stories, including modern tales of the Crossroads, where the Crossroads is a convenience store in a city, where the Crossroads is a gas station on a highway across from cemetery, stuff like that. That would be something fun potentially. I did just release I, Death, a novel, which is about a teenager who has a death curse, and he's online blogging about, oh, woe is me, my girlfriend left me, all my friends keep dropping like flies. And it's not a dark comedy. It's a disturbing novel with lots of blood and guts and dirty sex and lots of really scary things happening. The publisher had to put a disclaimer, and I have to read this disclaimer. It's kind of funny because I just adore Ian, who's the publisher for Atomic Fez. He wrote there's the standard, this is a work of fiction, all characters, blah, 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 blah. It says, any scenes involving alcohol, drugs, and or teenage sex are not in any way an endorsement of these sorts of behavior by the publisher or the author. Kids, don't do drugs, stay in school, use a condom, word, yo. So, as the guy who promotes self-publishing, that's one reason why you want to work with a publisher, when they're that cool, when they're that fun. and Ian, the whole editing process was that sort of tongue-in-cheek sort of approach to it as well. But that's my shameless self-promotion.
That's awesome. So if where's the best place for people to? Oh, go ahead and talk so people can see what you're.
So this is iDeath. iDeath is available through. I know it's in bookstores through the U.S. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Chapters Indigo and print in Canada. It's also available Kindle, Kobo, iBooks, Nook, Google, all of the usual suspects. You can also, and I'm just saying this, you don't have to buy it. You can read the novel for free on Wattpad. I've been rolling it out. I'm about 3/4 of the way through, and till the end of the year, I'll continually be doing it chapter by chapter. So I'm shamelessly plugging it and saying you don't even have to buy it. You can check it out for free if you want.
That's cool. So where's the best place for people to find you?
Me, the author is markleslie.ca. If you're looking as a writer for Kobo Writing Life, kobo.com, there's some great stuff there, but kobo.com/writing life is a place for writers to go check out. But that's just me plugging the place that I work, as well as markleslie.ca.
That's great. Well, we can't thank you enough for coming. It's been great having you here.
It was fun chatting books with you guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So thanks to everyone for. Or do you want to take a quick look for comments, Michael? I think we got.
Well, while you're looking, I'll say that I was adding all the ones that we've been reading to our to be read podcast Goodreads list, so people can look them up, and we'll be continuing.
Oh, you were doing it while we were going. That's good.
Yeah, I was doing that on the ones we read. Our recommendations list, I'll see. I might just post that as text somewhere because that's a lot of books today.
It was.
Yep, and no comments.
Okay. So thanks for listening to TBR. Once again, we thank Mark Leslie Lefebvre for coming on to the show. We are all caught up on iTunes. If anyone wants to go there and rate and review the show, we'd greatly appreciate that. We always record live on Tuesdays, normally at 9. Today we ran a little bit late, so thanks for showing up. And next week we're going to be talking about ebook subscription services. And we hope to see you there. Thanks for listening. Have a good night, guys.
Happy Halloween and happy reading.